I never thought I'd be one of those guys posting some sob story about how I got cheated on by my wife, but here I am. My name's Jake, and I was married to Emily for about 3 years. We were the kind of couple everyone said was perfect, happy, successful, stable. Or at least that's what I thought. We had our ups and downs, sure, but I always believed we had something solid, something real. She was gorgeous, confident, sharp-tongued, often bitchy, but I loved her for it. She had this attitude that she was the boss of her own life, and I appreciated her independence. We met at work, and she immediately charmed everyone with her wit and fiery personality. She was the kind of woman who knew what she wanted and went after it. I was smitten from the start, and she seemed to feel the same. We started dating, and it felt like everything was falling into place. I proposed after a year, and we planned the wedding for 6 months later. I was over the moon, honestly. But as the weeks went by, I started noticing little things that didn't sit right. She'd be quite distant sometimes, on her phone more than usual, and I'd catch her lying about where she was or who she was talking to. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe she was just stressed with work or something. But then I caught her in a lie about her whereabouts one night. She said she was out with her friends, but her phone pinged at a hotel on the edge of town. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding, and a strange feeling washed over me. It was like a warning sign I didn't want to see. I didn't confront her that night, but I kept that message buried in my mind. And then there was the day I found her phone open accidentally while she was in the shower. I saw the messages. They weren't just friendly banter, there was something more. Flirty texts, suggestive photos, talk about secrets and desires that were meant for someone else. My stomach clenched. Who was this guy? I recognized the name, Tom, her best man from the wedding. The guy I trusted the most, the one who stood beside me and smiled at our vows. The one she called her bro, but apparently it was more than just a brotherly bond. I looked closer. There were messages about meeting up, about how she couldn't wait to see him again. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I'd spent years building this life with her, and all along she was sneaking around with Tom, my best man. How could she lie so effortlessly? She swore she loved me, said I was the only one she wanted, especially right before our wedding. But the evidence didn't lie. It was right there on her phone, plain as day. That moment everything changed. I felt betrayal deep in my bones. I wanted to confront her right then, but I needed to think. I needed to figure out what to do. That was the beginning of the end for me, even if I didn't realize it at the time. The worst part, Emily's reaction when I finally brought it up. She was nothing like I expected. She played the victim, called me paranoid, said I was overreacting, that I was jealous, insecure. She told me I was blowing things out of proportion, that Tom was just a friend, that I was making a mountain out of a molehill. But I knew better. I saw the truth in her eyes, and I saw the lies tumble out of her mouth. After she finished her pointless denials and insisted I was imagining things, I felt a cold rage bubbling up inside. I was furious, furious at her betrayal, furious at myself for not noticing sooner, and furious at Tom for being such a criminally stupid bastard. I couldn't believe I had trusted her so much, only to be made a fool of behind my back. The worst part was the way she dismissed everything like I was some jealous psycho who couldn't handle her being free. Yeah, right, free to cheat maybe. I needed to get more concrete evidence. I started digging, going through her messages, her social media, her emails. I already knew what I'd find, but I needed confirmation. And I found it. Endless exchanges, dirty talk, plans to meet, promises of secrecy, and a lot of I love yous hidden between the lines. It wasn't just a fling. It was something serious, something she was hiding from everyone, including me. She kept lying about Tom being just a friend, saying he was only helping her with work stuff, but I knew better now. The signs were there screaming at me. I remember one night I was sitting on the couch staring at her phone when she was in the kitchen. I had been suspicious for a while, and I finally decided enough was enough. I stealthily picked up her phone, logged into her messaging app, and what I saw made my stomach turn. There were more messages, more pictures, more lies. They talked about sneaking around, about how she couldn't wait to see him again, how they were going to meet behind my back. I felt like I'd been punched again, this time straight in the chest. All those nights when she said she was working late or out with friends, she was actually with Tom. I was shattered. I sat there, cold sweat on my forehead, trying to process this new reality. How did I miss all of this? How did I not see the signs? The woman I thought I knew was a stranger, and the man I relied on, Tom, was just another liar. It was like waking up from a nightmare I couldn't escape from. I thought I was the one who was supposed to protect her, love her, yet she was out there doing whatever she wanted with her best man right in front of my face. The worst part was the way she reacted when I finally decided to confront her for real. I called her into the bedroom, told her I knew everything, and I demanded she explain herself. Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk I knew so well. "Oh, Jake, you're so paranoid," she said, flipping her hair, acting like I was the crazy one. "I swear, you're just insecure. Tom is just my friend. Honestly, you're overreacting. You're making a huge deal out of nothing." Her voice was icy, her eyes cold. It was like she wanted me to believe her lies, to dismiss the truth I had uncovered. I remember feeling everything collapse inside me. Anger, heartbreak, disgust all at once. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I kept my cool. I told her I knew about the sex, about the secret meetings, about the lies. Her face never flinched. Instead, she threw in more lies, denied everything, said I was just jealous, that I was insecure because she loved me and only me. But I could see through her smirk. She was still lying, still trying to manipulate me into doubting my own eyes, my own instincts. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything, the quiet moments, the signs I missed, her bullshit excuses. I felt betrayed in every possible way. I mean, I loved her, God, I really loved her. I thought we had something special, but this was different. It wasn't just a fling. It was her cheating on me with my best man, the person I trusted most after my own family. How do you come back from that? How do you even look at her the same way again? I knew at that moment things were never going to be the same. I had to decide whether I was going to forgive her or just walk away. But deep down, I already knew I couldn't stay. Not after this. Not after I saw the truth laid bare. The betrayal ran too deep. I was hurt, angry, and honestly, I felt like a damn fool for trusting her so blindly. But I also knew I had to do something about it. The wheels were turning in my head, and I started plotting my next move. The next morning, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My mind was racing, replaying everything I'd uncovered the night before. I knew I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. I had to confront Tom, but I also knew I needed a plan, something precise, something that would hit him where it hurt. I wasn't going to just lose my wife and accept it gracefully, not after what I found out. This was about revenge, pure and simple. Not just to punish her, but to make sure she understood exactly how deeply she screwed up. I started by gathering more evidence, screenshots of the messages, saved photos, and even some of the locations she had been to with Tom. I wanted every detail, every lie, every secret to be documented. I also called a private investigator. Yeah, I know it might seem over the top, but I needed to be sure I had everything right before I made any moves. Turns out she'd been sneaking out a lot, meeting Tom at some dingy hotel on the outskirts of town. The pie confirmed it. It was all there, plain as day. Meanwhile, Emily kept giving her usual bullshit excuses. She swore she loved me, that it was a mistake, that Tom was just a phase. She played the victim, said I was controlling, jealous, insecure, that she was sorry for hurting me, but I knew her too well. I could see right through her act. She loved the power she had over me, that smirk, that biting tone. She was still lying, still trying to manipulate her way out of this mess. But I was done listening. I knew the truth, and now I had to decide what I was going to do with it. I knew I couldn't just walk away without making her pay. That's where my plan for revenge started to take shape. I wanted to humiliate her, to make her regret ever trying to betray me. I knew Tom's weakness too. He always liked the thrill of the forbidden. So I decided I'd use that. I contacted some of my friends, people I knew who owed me favors, and I told them about Tom's little secret. I handed over all the evidence, texts, photos, locations, and told them to make sure everyone knew the truth. I wanted Tom's reputation ruined. I wanted Emily to realize what she lost. One night I staged a situation. I sent a fake message to Tom, pretending to be someone else, telling him I had proof of everything he'd done and I was coming for him. The next day, I called Emily into the room and showed her the messages I'd faked, crafted to look like I'd caught him red-handed, even though I hadn't. Her face paled, and I could see her trying to hold her composure. She tried to deny it, but I just smiled. I told her I knew what she was doing, that I had enough evidence to crush her, and that I was done trusting her lies. That was the moment I knew I had her, really had her. She broke down, finally realizing I wasn't going to take her shit anymore. She begged, said she loved me, that she was sorry, that she'd never do it again. But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. I told her she could either come clean and face the consequences, or I would make sure everyone knew what she did. That night she finally admitted everything. Her affair with Tom, how she'd been lying all along, how she'd thought she could get away with it. The aftermath was a whirlwind. I threw her out of the house. She screamed, called me crazy, said I was overreacting, typical stuff. But I didn't care. I felt a strange mix of relief and pain. Relief because I finally knew the truth. Pain because I loved her and she had thrown it all away for some cheap thrill. I started reaching out to friends and family, telling them what I'd discovered so they wouldn't be blindsided if news got out. I wanted her reputation tainted, just as she had tainted mine. Looking back, I realize I should have seen the signs sooner, but I was blind in love. Now I see clearly. I learned that people can hide the worst things behind pretty faces and sweet words. I learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to rebuild. And I learned that sometimes the only way to truly move on is to hit back hard. I don't regret the revenge. I just regret trusting her so much in the first place. But I guess you live, you learn, and now I'm trying to pick up the pieces. After I kicked Emily out and finalized the breakup, I thought I'd feel some relief, or at least a sense of closure. Instead, I just felt emptier than ever. The house was too quiet without her, and every corner reminded me of what we had, what we lost. It was a strange kind of hollow, knowing she'd betrayed me with Tom, my supposed best man. I kept replaying everything, trying to understand how I could have missed all the signs, how she could lie so effortlessly, and how Tom, my close friend, could do this to me. But I knew I had to focus on moving forward. I kept telling myself I was better off without her, even if part of me still hurt. I spent the next few days trying to piece together what went wrong, how I'd been so blind. I also started reflecting on the betrayal, the trust I'd placed in her, and how naive I'd been to believe she was perfect. It was a brutal realization, trusting someone only to find out they'd been lying, cheating, and sneaking around behind your back. That kind of betrayal leaves scars. Still, I knew I needed to make some changes. I couldn't let this destroy me, but I also refused to let her get away with it. I made a vow to myself. I wouldn't be that guy who lets a cheating wife ruin everything. I decided to focus on myself, working out, reconnecting with friends, and trying to rebuild my confidence. I even started seeing a therapist, which helped me process all the anger and sadness. But underneath it all, I was furious. Furious at Emily, furious at Tom, and mostly furious at myself for trusting so blindly. One thing I did was reach out to Tom. I didn't plan on some grand confrontation, but I needed closure, something to seal the deal. I sent him a simple message. "Thanks for the betrayal, Tom. You're a piece of shit." It felt good to finally say it, to let him know I saw him for what he was. I wasn't expecting a reply, and I didn't want one. It was more about me reclaiming some sense of control, some small victory over the chaos that had engulfed my life. Meanwhile, Emily was trying to contact me, of course. She sent apologies, tears, pleadings, stuff I didn't want to hear. I blocked her number after a while. I didn't want her drama in my life anymore. I had enough heartbreak and betrayal to last a lifetime. The thing is, she kept insisting that she loved me, that it was just a mistake, that she'd change. But I knew better now. Love isn't just words, and a woman who cheats on her husband with his best man doesn't get a free pass just because she says she's sorry. The weeks that followed were a blur of emotional highs and lows. I'd wake up feeling angry, then sad, then numb. I started dating casually, but I couldn't get her out of my head. The betrayal had carved out a deep wound, and even the most fleeting thought about her sent a surge of pain through me. It's strange how love can turn so quickly into resentment, how trust can turn into suspicion overnight. I kept asking myself, was I ever truly happy with her? Did I miss the signs? Or was I just too blind to see the truth? One night I was sitting alone in my apartment, scrolling through old photos of us, happy times, laughs, vacations. I realized I had to accept that I might never fully get over this. The betrayal had changed me. I was more guarded now, more suspicious. But I also knew I couldn't let her define my entire future. I had to find a way to heal, to rebuild my sense of self. It was a long road ahead, but I was determined not to let her win. Not this way. Looking back, I wish I could go back and do things differently. Maybe I'd pay more attention, ask more questions, trust my gut more. But I also learned that people can hide who they really are behind a veneer of charm and confidence. I learned that even those closest to you, your wife, your best friend, can betray you in the worst ways. And I learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to cut ties, take control, and move on no matter how much it hurts. I still feel the sting, but I know I'll be okay. Eventually. After months of trying to pick up the pieces, I finally started to see some light at the end of the tunnel. The initial shock and rage had faded into a dull ache, replaced by a grim determination to rebuild my life. I threw myself into work, into the gym, into reconnecting with friends I'd neglected during my marriage. But beneath all that, a part of me was still haunted by what had happened. Sometimes I'd catch myself staring at old photos or thinking about Emily, and that rush of anger and sadness would come rushing back. One thing I realized was that I had to confront the aftermath head-on. I wasn't about to let her betrayal control me forever. So, I decided to cut all ties with her completely. No more calling, no more texts, no more trying to understand why she did it. I had to accept that she was gone, at least from my life as I knew it. The hardest part was trying to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly for so long. I kept asking myself if I could have done something differently, but I knew deep down that she was just good at hiding her true self. I also made a conscious decision to keep my distance from Tom. I hadn't contacted him directly because I honestly didn't want to give him the satisfaction. But I made sure everyone around me knew what kind of person he was. He lost his respect with me forever. I didn't want to be the guy who held on to grudges, but I couldn't ignore how deeply he'd betrayed me. The worst part was the way he used my trust to get what he wanted. That really stuck with me, how easy it was for someone I called a friend to stab me in the back. As time went on, I started dating again, cautiously. No one could replace what I'd lost, but I knew I had to move on. Still, every now and then, I'd get a flash of anger or sadness when I saw couples happy together. It's strange how betrayal can make you question everything, even the idea of love. But I also learned that love, true love, isn't about trusting blindly. It's about being cautious, about recognizing red flags early, about knowing your worth. One thing I did was write everything down, my feelings, what I learned from this mess, what I wish I'd seen earlier. It helped me process the trauma. It's not about revenge anymore. It's about reclaiming my life. I also sought therapy, which helped me understand that the betrayal was more about her issues than mine. I was a good guy, someone who loved and trusted, and I deserved better. I started realizing that my happiness shouldn't depend on the approval or fidelity of someone else. It was about me, my boundaries, my self-respect. Now I'm at a different place. I'm not the same guy I was when this all started. I'm more cautious, more guarded, but also more aware of what I want and what I won't accept. The scars are still there, but they remind me of what I survived and how much stronger I've become. I don't hate Emily anymore. I just feel sorry for her, really. She threw away something good for a moment of stupid pleasure. The pain is fading, replaced by a quiet sense of closure. Looking back, I realize I've learned some hard lessons. Trust is fragile, betrayal cuts deep, and the only person you can truly rely on is yourself. If I could give advice to anyone in my shoes, it would be this. Don't ignore the red flags. Don't let anyone guilt or manipulate you into staying, and never blame yourself for someone else's betrayal. Heal at your own pace and don't rush into anything until you're ready. Most importantly, never lose sight of your own worth. Because if you do, someone else definitely will, and that's a betrayal you can't fix. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize that I've come a long way from that guy who was blinded by love and trust. The betrayal hurt worse than I ever thought possible, but it forced me to grow in ways I never anticipated. It's funny how life throws these terrible curveballs, but somehow, you find a way to adapt and keep moving forward. I've learned that trust, once broken, is almost impossible to fully rebuild, but that doesn't mean you have to stay broken forever. What I've come to accept is that some people aren't worth the pain they cause. Emily's betrayal was a brutal lesson in recognizing red flags early and trusting my instincts. I used to believe that love meant blind trust, believing she was who she said she was. But now I see that love is about mutual respect, honesty, and boundaries. Without those, it's just a matter of time before everything falls apart. I've also realized that revenge, while cathartic in the moment, doesn't truly heal the wound. What really matters is rebuilding yourself and finding happiness again, even if it's different from what you had. Before, I don't harbor hatred for Tom or Emily anymore. I just feel a deep sense of relief that I finally saw the truth and took control of my life. That's the real victory. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's that you're stronger than you think. Betrayal is one of the most painful experiences, but it's also an opportunity to learn more about yourself, to find your worth, reclaim your dignity, and realize that you don't need anyone who doesn't value you. You're not alone in this kind of pain, and eventually the hurt turns into a distant memory. I'm not saying I've completely moved on or that I won't have moments when I feel the sting again, but I can say I've accepted what happened and I'm choosing to focus on myself now. I've started to rebuild that trust in myself that was shattered. That's enough for me. For anyone going through something similar, I'd say, hold on, be patient, and remember your worth. Don't let betrayal define you. You are more resilient than you think, and one day you'll look back and realize that the pain, the betrayal, and even the revenge, all of it was just part of your journey to becoming stronger.